Today, I'm going to be talking about my thoughts and opinions on the new Haken album called Fauna. Alright, so first of all, I started listening to Haken around the pandemic time. I discovered their song Cockroach King, one of the first songs I ever heard from them, and I like the quirky, weird progginess of it, and ever since then I've been a huge fan. And obviously Virus was also a huge album. It was super heavy, full of amazing riffage, heavy stuff, and it's great all the way through. Fast forward to yesterday, Haken released their newest album, Fauna, and that includes a couple singles that they released beforehand. Taurus, Nightingale, and The Alphabet of Me, I believe, are the three that they released before this album, and Nightingale was the first one, and it gave me so much excitement for this album. I was like, man, Haken is one of my favorite bands right now. This is a heavy, progressive, awesome sounding song, and I can't wait for the rest of the album. Now, what I will say is I don't think it is as heavy as Virus was, and I think that was intentional. They kind of moved back and forth between sounds, and this was more of a kind of experimental proggy album with some obviously heavy segments in it, but it's not an overall just straight balls to the wall heavy, kind of like Virus was. Virus was, I would consider, one of their greatest albums thus far, kind of like the Rust in Peace for Megadeth. I think Virus was kind of that for Haken. Fauna definitely has some heavy hitters for me. Nightingale I love. Elephants Never Forget might be my favorite track on the entire album, and Eyes of Ebony was also a third, like, really strong track in my mind. Other tracks like Beneath the White Rainbow and Love Bite and even Taurus, I kind of liked, kind of in the mid-range, with maybe Beneath the White Rainbow being kind of different enough to attract my attention a little more than Love Bite and Taurus. Sempiternal Beings and The Alphabet of Me were kind of the hit or miss songs for me. Island in the Clouds was also kind of between that hit or miss and kind of mid-level song for me on this entire album, but I have to remember that I don't think they intended for this album to be an entirely balls-to-the-wall heavy album like Virus. I think this album, along with all of Haken's other discography, is just amazing. I really love progressive music, and a lot of progressive music nowadays can start to sound redundant, and they kind of blend together because it's become kind of the popular thing now to be involved with. But Haken somehow does something different, and it's a combination of the players at hand. And I think from the solo music that I've listened to from Rich Henshaw, one of the guitar players, he seems to be kind of the quirky sound of Haken, along with the vocals and the keyboards. It gives Haken their kind of quirky sound. It's like Richard Henshaw gives the quirky weirdness of the guitar parts, and then the other guitar player, which I'm blanking on his name because I've also listened to Tic-Tac Tila, his solo album, and I thought that was really good. Charlie Griffiths, yes. His album Tic-Tac Tila and Richard Henshaw with, I think it's Cocoon, those albums are really good, and I listen to those along with Haken's music. And if you listen to those albums separately, you can see where the combination of Charlie Griffith's like heavy, chuggy, balls to the wall sound and Richard Henshaw's like quirky, weird with a bit of heavy sound combined to create what is Haken. And then you get Ross Jennings in there with his vocals, and they're not normal vocals by any means. He's got his own voice that sticks out from most other people, and it just creates this whirlwind of awesome, heavy, progressive music, and that's what we call Haken. Fauna, for me, is not my favorite Haken album, I can say that, but it has some new favorite songs for me. Again, Elephants Never Forget, Eyes of Ebony, and Nightingale are amazing tracks from the album. Those are the three that really stick out to me as sounding cool and innovative and like just awesome in my head. The weirdness of those tracks is what attracts me to those tracks, if that makes any kind of sense. Now, this isn't like a full comprehensive review track by track of this album or a reaction to this album or anything of the sort, because that would take too long and it would get to a pointless level. I just wanted to give my 2 cents on this album because they are kind of one of my favorite bands. They are tied up there with Dream Theater for me, and this is new music of theirs, so it's very pertinent, and I think they're on the cutting edge of what modern progressive music is these days. So all in all, great album. If I were to give it a rating out of 10, I'd give it an 8. Virus to me is like a 9.5, so you can kind of compare the two like that. Vector is also kind of like an 8 or 9, so this is not their strongest in my mind because, you know, you have that sophomore syndrome where a lot of bands come out with their first album and it's really amazing, then they have to live up to it with their second album. This is kind of that to me, with Virus being so much of a heavy hitter album all the way through, and then they kind of have to live up to that. So maybe I'm being a little biased and comparative, but Fauna is a kind of direction change a little bit into more progressive proggy weirdness, away from the heaviness, but still having some heaviness. And you know, that's fine. I love bands that do all sorts of things, and the fact that they can kind of move around and do different things as musicians is a big tip of the hat to how well they can master their instruments per se and present music in a way that is enjoyable for people to listen to. All in all, to all the guys in Haken, amazing job on the new music, man. I am a huge fan. I'm one of the biggest fans in the world these days for you guys. And Richard Henshaw, you specifically, your Strandberg guitar, that 8-string, that beast of a guitar. I will own one of those one day. Mark my words. I will own one of those one day. It's an amazing looking guitar, and I can't imagine it sounds bad in any way. I seen you play it live in Detroit not too long ago, so just specifically to you, I will have one day. Alright, that's all I've got for you guys today, so thank you so much for watching and hearing my 2 cents on Haken's new album, Fauna. It's out now if you didn't already know. Go listen to it on all your favorite streaming platforms and let me know which track on this album was your favorite. Thank you guys so much for liking, commenting, and subscribing, and I will see you in the next video. Stay metal, my friends.